This is the McShay Show. Appreciate you all being here. On tap today, we've got the Senior Bowl executive director and longtime friend, guy I used to work with 25 years ago, Jim Nagy, joining us on this show. We're going to talk a lot of NFL prospects. Also today, we've got this week's edition of That's My Guy. Who are our guys? This is 2.0, Muench. I hope you're ready for that. And finally, where are the scouts going to be this week? And where would Todd be this week? And as usual, it's going to be food driven. We got week 10 in the college football season, week 9 in the NFL, and only 177 days until the NFL draft. Muench, you good?
I'm good, man.
All right, let's hear that beat. Here we go. All right, Muench, let's go, bud. This week, we've got the 2.0 version. That's my guy. It's my favorite segment that we do here. This week, you've had more time to watch some tape. Always curious at who you're looking at. Trying to put together our board. It's a long process. I'm going to start this off, okay? I know we've got a couple running backs and a couple edges. For me, a guy that's really stood out in the tape that I've watched is Kyle Kennard, the edge from South Carolina, 6'5", 254 pounds. This South Carolina defense has been awesome to watch. I mean, they really have. They've shown up in big games. I know Dylan Stewart kind of got all the love early on, the true freshman coming in. We'll be talking about him in the 2027 draft. But Kennard, like, for as good as this defense has been in South Carolina, he's the dog. You know, he's the alpha male. He's the guy who's out there making plays, always around the football. 15% pressure rate is what I read the other day, and I buy it because it seems like just consistently he's creating pressures, wreaking havoc. 8.5 sacks, 23 pressures this year. What I love on tape, right, with Kennard is that some guys have great takeoffs, like that first three steps. We're always talking about that. And, you know, like when we're watching and evaluating players, I like to watch the sideline. Normally, you want to watch the end zone copy. When you're evaluating tape, you get the scoreboard as the first screen. Then you swipe it. Next screen is going to be the sideline copy, right? And that usually is when you're watching defensive backs, wide receivers. You can see all 22. It's called the all 22. And usually when you're watching the trenches, you want to watch that end zone copy. But with the edge rushers and even defensive tackles, when you're trying to look at that get off, that take off, the first few steps, I always watch the all 22 because you can get a sense of who's getting off the ball the fastest. It's a combination of two things with pass rushers. When you're talking about that first three steps, snap anticipation, and then the burst off the line of scrimmage. He's got both. That's what I love about it. Like he knows, like, the second that ball snapped. You watch Joey Bosa, right? Nick Bosa. The Bosas are as good as anyone in the league at that. Snap anticipation, firing off the ball. And then in addition, he's got the burst. He's got enough speed to get around the edge, good with his hands, but an unrelenting motor. So Kyle Kennard is a player that I viewed as, you know, mid-round prospect, somewhere early day 3 coming into the year. I think when we come out with our first top 100, he might be in the top 50. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you go back to the LSU tape, and I think that was kind of his coming out party. And you look at that game, and he had 2 costly penalties. And if you're the average college football fan, you might be like, wow, this guy, tough game for him. I'm watching it, and I'm like, this guy can get after the quarterback. You know, yeah, sure, the penalties, something to take into account, but I'm watching him. He's winning around the corner. He's crossing those. I mean, those are talented offensive tackles. We've talked a lot about him on the show. He's crossing their face. He's winning the inside. I love the versatility, the ability to kick inside. And then again, it's not the defining quality of what a great edge rusher is, but that motor. He is an absolute dog.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to see him this week because this is a Texas A&M team, and we'll get into that game a little bit more. An A&M team's offensive line continues to improve.
Right.
They now have Marcel Reed at quarterback. Run heavy, run centric offense, not necessarily his specialty. And we'll get into all these things, but how does he perform setting a hard edge versus the run? How disruptive can he be? So that's a good test for him. Who do you got? Who's your guy this week?
I'm going to go with the Virginia Tech edge, Antwuan Powell-Ryland, who somehow is second in the FBS with 11 sacks and feels like he's flying under the radar. And I remember watching him against BC earlier this year. 4 sacks in that game, looked absolutely unblockable. And when I watched him, he's got that snap in his hips when he transitions from speed to power, can kind of run over guys. And then he's got that ability to dip and bend when he's at the top of his rush, which I think is what you're looking for in elite edge rushers. A little bit of a concern is he's on the lighter side. He's got to get a little bit stronger against the run. But when you're an edge guy, you make your money getting after the quarterback. And this is a guy who can get after the quarterback. And I know I love my comps because, they just bring all kinds of attention for me. But I see him a little bit of Alex Highsmith, the Steelers outside.
Okay.
Linebacker.
All right.
Yeah. It gives me that kind of a vibe. That same Highsmith's a little bit lighter, but same kind of build. And just that ability to absolutely get after the quarterback.
We know with that smooth beard, you're an attention whore, Mensch. I know your game. All right, last guy for me. We're going to do two my guys this week. Auburn running back Jarquez Hunter. I've liked the guy for a while, but I feel like he's never been I don't want to say featured, but he's never been in that elite group, like all the great running backs we have this year. We'll get into that more with Jim Nagy later. But to me, to see what Jarquez is starting to do and becoming a major part of that Auburn offense, it's fun to watch. I remember back with Jarquez, right? I remember back to 2021, watching a game against Penn State, Fowler, Herb Street, that crew. It's a primetime game, and there's this freshman running back that I don't know anything about. I'm watching this game. And all of a sudden, he's on the right, takes the edge, he's got good speed, turns the corner, and instead of taking on the defender, he hurdles him. Not always the best idea for a running back. Hurdles him successfully. It was a big play for them. Really close game, if I remember correctly. I think it was a one-touchdown game in the end. Penn State won. But I remember that play specifically because I remember jumping on my phone and being like, all right, who's this guy? And it just keeps,
sticks with you, right?
Yeah. So when you look at Hunter, he's having a really good season so far. 120 carries, 863 rushing yards already, Mensch. 5 touchdowns. The thing that I like too with all these running backs, you got to be able to catch the football and contribute in the passing game. He has 60 career receptions.
Right.
I've watched him, against LSU, I think it was a couple of years ago, adjusting the ball down the sideline, the ability to pluck away from his frame. And when I watch him, he's not one of those guys, he's not like the shiftiest. He's not it doesn't have the most wiggle, but he really does a great job of run. He runs low to the ground, contact balance, which the more I scout, the longer I've been in this, that's number one to me.
It jumped out big time to me for a guy who's not, he's not a big back. I wouldn't call him a big power back.
No, he's
the contact balance is great.
He's 5'9", but he's 209 pounds, so he's tightly packed. But he's not running over dudes, but he's continuing runs after initial contact, and then the speed, the burst when it's not even necessarily one cut and go, but the burst off of cuts and the burst, when he breaks off of breaks through contact, his burst in the open field was really impressive. So
we talk about slow too and quick through the hole. That jumped out to me too.
Yes.
He takes his time, lets those blocks go, and then he drops the hammer and accelerates to the hole.
This running back class is loaded, dude.
Legit.
Right?
I'm excited about it. And it'll be interesting to see where they all go because, positional value, but there's going to be a lot of good backs to come out. Yeah,
it's going to be Ashton Genty somewhere in the top 15 picks is my guess.
I would think so.
Then it'll be round 2 is my other guess.
Right.
Maybe you see Judkins from Ohio State, former Ole Miss running back, sneak in late first. But I think we're going to have a historic run. It won't even be in the second. There will be a couple guys in the second, but 3rd, 4th, 5th round, maybe a historic run at running back. Speaking of running backs, who do you got? Who's your other my guy?
I'm going with the North Carolina running back, Omarion Hampton, a guy who's listed at 220 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. I look at the size in the NFL. These are some of the backs that are, similar build to him. You got Ramondre Stevenson out of New England. You got Nick Chubb for Cleveland. You've got Joe Mixon in Houston. Saquon's a little bit bigger. He's 233. He's actually, Saquon's a unicorn, but same same grouping, I would think. And then Jonathan Taylor from the Colts, all these 220-ish pound backs. And I see that power. I see that ability to break tackles. I see that ability to push the pile when you don't get a seam in short yardage situations. And I also see the speed. And when I think about that speed and I think about that build, another comp for me would be Mixon. I think he's got that kind of ability. I'm not sure he's as refined in the passing game, but I do think he's got upside in that area. And I think he's a guy who has the toughness and the strength to hold up in pass pro. I think he might be in the running back two mix when it's all said and done. I do have Junkins ahead of him right now, but I think Hampton could be there.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'll just Ashton Genty from Boise State, Junkins and Henderson from Ohio State. These aren't necessarily our rankings, but Hampton, who you just talked about, North Carolina, Caleb Johnson, Iowa, Nicholas Singleton, Penn State, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State, Hunter, who I mentioned from Auburn, Trevor Etienne from Georgia, Dylan Sampson, what he's done carrying the load for Tennessee, Dylan Monangai from Rutgers, Jaden Ott, Cal, Raheem Sanders from South Carolina. I literally could go like Kalel
Martinez
Mullings
from Miami has been outstanding the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Kalel Mullings emerging out of nowhere from Michigan, RJ Harvey from UCF. And there's like 7-8 more dudes.
They're all dudes. I think they're all going to play and contribute early in the NFL.
But the running back position's dead. I didn't give you a comp. How about I didn't give you a comp for Jarquez Hunter. What about Aaron Jones?
Ooh, I like that.
Similar build, like 5'9", 210.
Right.
Not the most overpowering, but contact balance, can catch. I don't know. Just someone to throw out there. All right.
I like it.
Let's flip the script a little bit here. Next up, we want to get to, and we're going to do this every week. It's probably going to be on Thursdays. Start with, that's my guy. And then number 2, we always got to get to, where are the scouts this week? This gives us an opportunity to kind of break down some of the biggest games, what the scouts are looking for. And we always, when you get reports late in the week when everyone's filled it out and the scouts let the PR people for schools know, and it's like 26 scouts there, including two GMs. The games to me, like there are some secondary games. I'll just list off. There's some secondary games where scouts will be, like Duke, Michigan, obviously Florida, Georgia.
Duke, Miami, right? Sorry, Duke, Miami.
Did I say Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're here, Matt. You always pick up my slack. Duke, Miami at Miami. Florida, Georgia, right? Obviously, the rivalry game. There's loads of talent at Georgia. Some at Florida, not as much. I was going through – I sorted our Excel document today. I was like, only a few guys from Florida. Pitt, SMU, sneaky game. Mm-hmm. SMU with the 1 loss.
Yeah.
Going up against Pitt, undefeated. This is a sneaky game. Kentucky, Tennessee is another one. More so Tennessee, but that's another one. So those are like the B-listers, if you will. Right. To me, the A-listers are, and I'll list off the 3 and we can get into each game. Ohio State, Penn State. We had what a great conversation with Joel Klatt the other day.
Unbelievable. What a guy. What a great guy.
Great guy, great stories, incredible detail, and just, and not even analysis as much, and it was analysis, but it just like you can tell why he's so prepared and he's at the pinnacle of the game, right? In terms of
when we sat down and tallt about what we wanted to get from the guests we had on each week, that was exactly it. Which is a great,
and more
great
to be honest. Yeah. All right. So Ohio State at Penn State's a noon game. Oregon, Michigan is the 3:30 game. And then A&M, Texas A&M, South Carolina, A&M coming off that huge win against LSU. First place in the SEC. Wouldn't want to go into Columbia this week, though. No. So we'll get to that. All right. Ohio State, Penn State. I'm going to give you a few things that jump out to me from a game standpoint, from a scouting standpoint, and you take it where you want to go. Obviously, the big conversation in this game is Drew Aller. How much is he going to be available, if at all? And if not, Bo Prabula comes in. What was he, 11 of 13 passing? Just looked really good. The offense was clicking with him. In fact, I would argue the offense looked better in the second half against Wisconsin than it did in the first half with Aller in there. So that's like the big story and the big question mark coming into the game. The other big story, which we touched on a lot with Joel, the left tackle position for Ohio State. And just so people understand, like Josh Simmons doesn't have a ton of game reps, who was the former starting left tackle, but he was emerging. I mean, he was emerging, like talking to scouts, like this could be a first rounder.
Right. I think he was a day 2 with a real chance to move up.
And so
he's trending that way. Yeah.
So he gets injured and they bring in the backup, Zen Michalski, I think. Michalski, right?
Mm-hmm.
Struggles. I mean, this show's not about beating guys down. And
we don't need to pile on.
Not a good game. Got dinged up in that game. They went down to their number 3 offensive tackle. So the word is, and we got it from Joel, and I keep reading it too, they're now going to move Donovan Jackson, who's an NFL draft prospect, from the left guard position to left tackle, is my understanding. And then Luke Montgomery, who's a sophomore, I don't know much about. He's going to plug into that left guard spot. So now it's like the age-old question: are you better off just like plugging in a guy at left tackle, which is the most important position, protecting the blind side, or are you now potentially going to create vulnerability at 2 spots, your entire left side of the line? So that's something we obviously are going to take a good hard look at. And it couldn't be a worse week to be trying to figure things out on your offensive line, going up against Abdul Carter and this defensive front for, it doesn't sound like Dennis Sutton is going to be, he's listed as questionable. When we talked to Joel, it didn't sound like he was going to play. But we'll take a look at that. But this defensive front is always loaded with dudes for Penn State.
Yeah. On that note, I think a guy that we have not talked about that we might be talking about on Tuesday or Saturday night is the defensive tackle Zane Durant. He's an undersized guy. Explosive.
Give me something, Mensch. What do you got?
I think he could be. When you talk about Donovan Jackson kicking out to left tackle, and you already had concerns at right guard. I mean, I said that coming out of that game. The left tackle took a lot of heat, but your right guard wasn't a great game for the right guard for Ohio State. So now you are kicking out your All-American guard to tackle. You're going to be a lot of questions on the inside all of a sudden, and you have a guy in Zane Durant from Penn State who I think is kind of flown under the radar. He's a junior. We'll see what he does in terms of coming out, but undersized but super explosive, and he could be a problem for them. He could be early penetration. That's the worst thing for a quarterback, is getting pressure in your face right away, and then you're trying to get that running game going, and you're going to give up penetration. He could be a problem for that team.
Yeah, and Dennis Sutton, I just mentioned, he was out last week against Wisconsin, and came the guy who came in for him, Amin Vanover. I was talking to Russillo on Monday, and he was asking me, like, who'd you watch in college football this week where you had to look him up, and like, this guy's a dude. And so I was like, to me, it was that edge for Penn State, Vanover.
Yeah,
at 6'5", 258, came in and had 5 quarterback pressures. So it'll be interesting to see what that defensive front can do. On the flip side, you got Ohio State's defense. We talked about it a lot. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole again. Not everyone playing up to elite level. And Joel, I don't want to say confirmed, but agreed that bunch of day 2 mid-round guys on Ohio State, bunch of veterans, should be playing better individually. And as a result of not playing to the elite level, again, I don't want Ohio State fans to think that we're like tearing this group apart. Very talented. You got 2 veteran edges who are really talented, Sawyer and JT. You've got 2 good cornerbacks who have been up and down this year, but very talented. Denzel Burke coming in with all the hype. Igbinosun, the other cornerback, Davison Igbinosun, is a really talented guy who's been rising this year. So, but when you look at this group, they haven't played to the level that you would expect. And there's not, like, as I mentioned before, it's not Alabama. It's not Georgia. Like when they're at their best, 4 or 5 guys in the first round, 6, 7, 8 guys in the top 100. It's just not that. So it's going to be interesting. Now you got Penn State quarterback. What's the situation there? I do love Nicholas Singleton, 6 foot, 226 pounds. Got off to a fast start, missed the UCLA game, only 22 carries the last 2 weeks. I'm expecting to see a little bit more of Singleton in this game, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get the 1-2 punch with Allen coming in. Now, I'll say this. Ohio State's defensive tackles I like too, which you didn't mention, but you mentioned pretty much everyone else. But their defensive tackles are good. They've been good against the run, but it's a talented group that Penn State's bringing in. And depending who's at quarterback, if you have Pribula. Is that how you say it?
Pribula.
Yeah, it's going to be a different kind of attack from Penn State, and a little more difficult for them to defend. So it'll be interesting to see how that run defense, which has been pretty stout, holds up against that kind of a rushing attack.
We've talked a lot about Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan. We talked a lot about your boy Mason Taylor, who made you look like a jerk in the first play. He was one of the that's my guy last week.
So yeah, what happened to my guy on that first?
He dropped a touchdown, but then caught another one a few plays later. We both love him, and we've talked a lot. And I talked about, I think last week, and that's my guy. Guys, I've been really, really like enjoying watching this season. Elijah Arroyo from Miami.
Yeah, Gunnar Helm's another one from Texas.
Gunnar, yeah,
his group's pretty good.
But Tyler Warren, Penn State, and just knowing his background. Dad's a safety from Richmond. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
That's why you got to keep in touch with your former coach, Frank Leonard.
I knew he was a Mechanicsville kid. I knew that.
Yeah, Dad was a safety at the University of Richmond, played for the Spiders.
That's awesome.
But Tyler Warren, just a great dude, absolutely loves the game. Versatility. Even snapped the ball last week for what that's worth, and it's not worth much as an NFL scout. But I mean, or that wasn't last week, a couple weeks ago, and when he had 17 catches versus USC. But I asked Joel, who are the other weapons that are going to step up, and he gave some great answers. But I'm interested to see against this talented defense for Ohio State, better athleticism at linebacker, better cover guys at safety than at USC. How can he be productive? What's the production level that he's going to provide? Does he separate? Does he get in and out of breaks? Does he work back to his quarterback? Is it a young quarterback that he's working with that he's still figuring out how to get open? Those are the little things that I want to watch in this game specifically to see truly how much he's grown from a year ago. Because so far the tape says he was awesome last year. And he's thrived in this role. Remember, Theo Johnson got drafted last year. Now he's become the guy, and he's proven he can handle it.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily have to separate. Well, he's 6'6", 261 pounds.
Separation for me at tight end is late separation as much as anything.
Yeah,
using
exactly.
that body to box
just to be clear, how do they physically separate? Not so much for the quick twitch, change of direction kind of things. But that's one of the things that I think separates him from this tight end group is he is 6'6", 260 pounds for a tight end these days. I mean, that's huge. And to see the body control and the way he can track the ball, I'm excited to see what he does. I do think a lot of it will depend on who's that quarterback and how well that quarterback plays. So we'll see.
This game's fascinating to me, man. Ryan Day, I looked it up today. I'm terrible with this stuff, but I think he's lost his last 4 versus top 5 opponents. James Franklin never wins against top 5 opponents. Something's got to give, right?
It feels like it's Penn State's year, but it can't be Penn State's year. It's never Penn State's year, right?
I'm taking Penn State plus a 3.5.
I like it.
And I'm unapologetic in that I am not a James Franklin guy. We'll leave it at that. We don't have to go into detailed reasoning or anything else. I'm not a James Franklin guy, but I think with the offensive line and the issues that they're having, I could see Ohio State coming out and playing its best game of the year.
Right.
I want that as a caveat.
We said this,
but
we'll lean Penn State and Ohio State by 10. That's what will happen.
Okay, so gun to head, you're taking Ohio State.
I'm taking Penn State.
All right, we're both.
It just feels different. It just feels different.
So if you're listening out there, I would race to FanDuel. I would race to FanDuel right now and give the points to Ohio State. All right, so that's all we've got for Penn State, Ohio State. I'm going to be parked for that game at noon on Fox. All right, 3:30 game, Oregon, Michigan. Oregon minus 14.5 feels like a fair spread.
Yep.
You got Davis Warren back in at quarterback. It has been a carousel for Michigan, right? Right. NFL scouts have a lot of other positions that they're scouting in this game. No question about Dylan Gabriel, obviously potential late round pick, played the best ball of his life. We've seen what Stein has done with him, the offensive coordinator, and certainly what Bo Nix, the success he experienced. with Stein and that Oregon offense a year ago and what that propelled him to. It's not going to be the same rise for Gabriel.
Right.
But he can't be playing much better than he is, And
Right.
so if there's a quarterback you're looking at in this game, it's obviously him. But so much other talent I'm just going to list off some of the top guys. Derek Harmon, I featured, I think it was last week. Players to watch that are rising. I think Harmon,
Awesome.
the former Michigan State defensive lineman, 3 technique. He's a player that really is rising, could be a top 50 pick. The wide receivers for Oregon, you got Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson, both having terrific years, right? And Terrence Ferguson as well, tight end for Oregon. So there are some dudes on that side of the ball.
Don't forget about my guy, Johnny Cornelius at right tackle. I think he's a guy that's day 2 who can move up too. Yeah.
I'm just looking. You got a 67.
Listen, I'm not going to let any offensive lineman slide by.
67 grade on him means early third, but early fourth, but you're thinking maybe you could work into day 2. Okay. On the flip side, it's really about the defense. If I'm breaking down this game, right, the one thing I really want to watch, this Oregon offensive line, if you're looking at all the position groups, Oregon offensive line has been vulnerable. Hasn't been terrible, but it's just been adequate, I'd say. Started off really slow in the first couple of games, has improved, but there's been vulnerability. It's had its trouble. Now, if you're going to give an edge anywhere to Michigan, it's this defensive front against that Oregon offensive line. And so you talk about Mason Graham, potential top 5, top 7 pick at defensive tackle.
Might be the best player in this draft, by the way, regardless of position.
I know, that's your dude. You always love Michigan defensive tackles.
I didn't think of that. I hadn't thought about that. It's 100% right. And I'm not going to apologize for it.
Yeah, maybe you should. Kenneth Grant, the other defensive tackle, best defensive tackle group, inside defensive line group in college football. There's no question in my mind. Josiah Stewart, those
speed off the edge. Yeah.
Speed off the edge. So this defense, if Michigan has any chance of pulling off this upset in the Big House, it's got to be Graham, Grant, Stewart, and the gang up front, right?
Especially because I've been checking. I don't think it looks good for Will Johnson to play. That
was my next point.
Right,
and Michigan's secondary has been a weakness this year. Surprising.
Right.
Will Johnson, 100% healthy, has played great in spurts. But he hasn't totally been himself. He's been nicked up. When he's healthy, though, he's the best pure corner. Travis Hunter's in a different category because he can both sides, what he can do on the offensive side at wide receiver. But Will Johnson, he is special. Patrick Surtain.
Sure. That's totally fair.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so that to me is going to be the matchup you got to watch, because if Oregon can protect and if Stein can scheme it up where Gabriel has time, they've got the weapons. This could get ugly in Ann Arbor. It could, but I don't think they do. I don't think that they have the offensive line. I think this is going to be a dogfight.
Really?
I think Oregon's yep.
Wow.
Yep. I think they're walking into a major trap here, Oregon. I'm not saying Michigan's going to win. But my FanDuel folks out there, take the 14.5. Michigan is going to step up. They are going to play great defensively. They are going to frustrate Gabriel. We've been waiting for Gabriel to have one of those games, and he's had them in the past. Like, he's good for plays really well in 9 games, and there's 3 games where he doesn't play to his level. And I think I'm not saying he's going to throw a dud out there. I just don't think that's where he is. But I think he's going to struggle more in this game than he has all season. Mm-hmm. And I don't think those weapons are going to be able to exploit the secondary the way they should because of the trouble up front. Now, offensively, they're
going to have a hard time keeping pace, even if Oregon's not going at the clip they usually go at.
I agree. That's why I'm not taking the outright.
Right, the money line, yeah.
But give me that 14 and a hook. That hook is appealing to me. I love it. I could see that. I could see, it goes from sunny in Ann Arbor. I've been in that stadium so many. I probably covered Michigan more than any other school during my 12 years out on the road, right?
Right.
The sun goes down. It gets kind of dark in there. It gets a little colder. I know Oregon, it's not like Miami playing there, but it's just a different vibe in the second half. I could see this game just being a little bit ugly and a little bit just scary at the end for Oregon.
Yeah.
All right. That's all you got. Who do you like? You're going to give the points, aren't you?
I could see Michigan covering. My concern is that this Michigan team coming off the year that they had last year, all the injuries, the concerns at quarterback, are they going to be amped up like you would be if the number one team came into your stadium?
Of course they're going to be
see.
amped up. What the fuck are you talking about?
I don't know, man. It's been a tough year for Michigan.
Yeah, but this is if you get any juice left in the tank, and I'm assuming they do.
We'll see.
All right. Last one. Rip through this. Texas A&M, South Carolina, right? Gonna keep it simple.
Lines.
Yeah, man, I'm excited.
Let's go.
I mean, we touched on a lot of it already, but South Carolina's pass defense is elite, but only average versus the run. Vulnerable between the tackles. If you're looking for something like, can South Carolina stop the inside run?
Right.
To me, like that's going to be critical. On the flip side, defensive line for A&M, clear advantage. That's where I think A&M is going to win this game. Clear advantage versus South Carolina's offensive line. Nick Scorton, we've talked a lot about him having a great year. The year you would expect for a guy who's looking at coming out in the 2025 NFL draft. And another player, I was watching his the tape the other day. Sherman Stewart, defensive tackle for A&M.
Shamar Stewart, right? The both Shamars are awesome, man.
Is it Shamar? Yeah,
Shamar. Yep.
Shamar. Yeah. It's a good thing I can watch the tape and don't need the names. Good thing we got 177 days until the NFL draft. Shamar Stewart, 6'6", 290 pounds. He's long, versatile. They move him around, quick and powerful. That's what I want. Defensive tackles, inside guys, quick and powerful, and that's what he's got some jolt in his hands. So those are the two guys in the defensive line that I'm looking forward to watching in this game. What else you got in that?
Both Shamars. Give me Shamar Turner and Shamar Stewart. I think both those guys are studs. South Carolina, we've talked about their edges a little bit, but don't forget about my guy, the safety, Nick Emanwari on the back end.
I know. How could we?
Big stage for him to continue to make plays. So I'm excited to see what he does. But yeah, it's really, I'm not going to overcomplicate this. This is the defensive lines. If you're a defensive line coach in the NFL, this is a tape that you are absolutely throwing in to see how these guys play.
I'm starting to buy Texas A&M a lot, as we've talked about all week long, coming off that LSU game. If they can go into Columbia night game and take care of business against a scary defense and a South Carolina team that's just hung tight and has played good ball all year long, I will be thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
If they can come in and control this game, they're all a 2.5 point spread. Vegas is expecting this to be tight. I would take A&M. I just trust Elko more. It's weird to trust an A&M coach and an A&M program that's always been about like the flash and the recruits and never has lived up to the excitement and the hype and the 12th man and all the other stuff that comes with it. This team feels grounded, like there's a foundation. I'm excited to see this game.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I think we got some imaging this week.
Let's go.
Where would Todd be this week? Let's toss to it, Mensch. Let's see what we got. That seems about right.
That's great.
I mean, it's so ridiculous that it actually is great. I'm here for it. So where would I be this week? You ready? Every week I'm going to give you my first 4 or 5 years at working with the War Room before it became Scout Saying. I had like an unbelievable opportunity. I was 23 years old, flying around, driving around the country like I was a GM. GMs get a week off. They try to squeeze in 3 games. It's 2 college games in the weekend and an NFL game. So I'm going back to those days. I'm going to be the GM. Where would I be? What would my trip look like? And it always has to include food. I'd start at Vandy, Auburn. Okay. Not great prospects, but we already talked about Jarquez Hunter, the running back. There's dudes at Vandy. There's dudes at Auburn.
Enough to justify the trip.
Bingo.
You just got to sell it to the boss,
Yeah. The boss is like, oh, SEC game. Okay. So you're going to get me 2 games on Saturday. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to get you 2 games. Work with me here. What he doesn't know is that this first game is all about Friday night. We'll get back to that in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going Vandy Auburn, hard out at 3:00. No matter where the game is, I'm not there to be a fan. I'm not pulling for Vandy in the upset. I'm not pulling for Auburn in this game.
Right.
Actually, it might not even be an upset. I'm not sure. But I'm not pulling for either of these teams. So at 3:00, wheels up in a car, because I'm not flying privately. Wheels up in the car. All right. And we're hitting the road. 4 hours we're going. It says 4:35 on the maps, but I'm going to make it in 4:10. I will be. You will make it in Columbia. Yes, I will. May have a ticket, but I will be there. I will be in Columbia, South Carolina by 7:10 to get the kickoff there. What an awesome environment that's going to be! Like, I can't wait to watch that. It's going to be. There's something fun about a South Carolina night game with all the stuff they get going on. So I'm going to be there for that night. Okay, and then I wake up the next morning, another 3 hour or so drive to Atlanta. And I got the Cowboys at the Falcons. That's the weekend. The highlight, though, is this, and we got to put up the graphic. I'm telling you, of all my stops all over this beautiful country of ours, all the diners, the great restaurants, the 5 stars, the places that people don't know about. I've got a list on my phone that goes for miles. 12 years on the road doing this, another 7 years before that. I did like 3 years in studio in between. 7 years before that, scouting, going out with Mike Gottfried and Ron Franklin in my early days. So I've been around. Food is everything to me. I've got to tell you about this place, man. I'm going to get you down to Auburn. The train might have to stop on the way down to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl.
I'm flying now, baby.
Acre. When in Auburn, you got to go to Acre. Here's the menu. Hats off to our guys for getting this up as a graphic. All right, I want to talk you through this. Here's how you do it. Okay. The last meal I had was about, 4 or 5 years ago with Steve Levy and Brian Greasy, and we rolled out of there. And we might have stumbled a little bit too, but we rolled out of there after. It was probably a 3.5 hour dinner, okay? We came in, and obviously very kind to us. They brought basically everything. But here's what you have to have when you're at Acre in Auburn, Alabama. Come in. I'm not like a big whiskey guy, but come in and get your cocktail, sit at the bar before you go sit down, and start with a couple snacks, they call it. First snack you got to have, chicken fried bacon, sawmill gravy, Vermont maple syrup, barbecue pecans. It's unbelievable, Mitch. And then you're starting out with this. So you got to really prepare. You can't have lunch, light breakfast. Then you go to the lacquered cornbread, honey hot sauce butter, Onsen Mills. I don't even know what that was, but bean seeds, like some of the best cornbread I've ever had in my life. And I've spent a lot of time in the South over the years. Then you get a starter when you go move over to your table. Get a starter. You start things up. The gas station boudin balls. Spicy mustard sauce, the B&B pickles. All right, so I'd like to get everything, and I've done everything there. But then you got to move to the butcher block. Pace yourself, right? Butcher block. All the charcuterie, all the cheese, all the fixins, family style. And then you get down to the entree. Like, I'm always least excited about the entree. But you got all these the Gulf brown shrimp rigatoni, the maple leaf duck breast, and then I've had this before. You ready? The redfish on the half shell with deckhand butter. This place is unbelievable. So that's my trip. That's why, and it would be Acre. So if you're out there, folks at Acre, hats off to you.
Two major green flags on this menu. Okay. Fall 2024. Love the seasonal menus, man. Love when they're changing it up to get what's fresh then, what's the best ingredients in season. And anything with snacks, like if you have a snack section of your menu, it's going to make me happy. It's going to make everyone happy. David
Bancroft does not bleep around. Like this is, I'm telling you, like in New York City, LA, like this is, but it's even better because it's like, it's down south,
Right.
It's it's that level quality of food, but it's like, and you're like tucked in there. You get the Auburn fans on Friday night. Like the environment's the best, the absolute best. So hats off to chef and owner David Bancroft, and I can't wait to get back down there. So that's it for this week. Mensch, we got our guy, Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl, longtime friend. He's been around the NFL. He knows the scouting circuit and all the players as well as anybody out there. It's a great opportunity to talk to him. We're going to be talking to him a lot on the McShay Show coming up, leading up to and through the NFL draft. But this is the first time we've been able to bring him on. Really excited to have Jim. The McShay Show is presented by FanDuel. Get out your game day gear this college football season on FanDuel, because right now, all customers get a profit boost every college football Saturday. That's every single Saturday. One game I'm looking long and hard at this weekend, Penn State versus Ohio State. Buckeyes go into a tough environment in Happy Valley. Offensive line is struggling. This might be the one where Penn State finally turns the corner and wins the big game. Boost your winnings on bets like spreads, over-unders, method of first touchdown, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/McShay to download America's #1 sportsbook and kick off every college football Saturday with a boost. Must be 21 or older and present in select states, or 18 and older and present in D.C. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Nagy, how are you, brother?
Welcome back, man. Welcome back to the draft space, Todd McShay.
It's been a minute.
Good to see you, buddy.
I'm not going to give you some long, formal introduction. It's just not how we do it here. But I will tell you. So, Mensch, remember we talked the other, and you guys know each other very well. We've all kind of worked together and around each other for 2.5 decades. But I was telling the story the other day, Mensch, about when I was, interning with Gary Horton in Arizona, moved up to New York City, making $12,000 that first year. What I didn't explain to people was a couple things. One, I was living on Gary's couch in a 1-bedroom in Midtown Manhattan, which was less than ideal. Okay. and let's just say, God bless Gary Horton, God rest his soul. An absolute character. The absolute best, but also just the stories never ending. So anyway, I was mentioning like 57th and 7th in Midtown Manhattan, 27th floor, I think it was. We're up there with like David Falk, who's repping Michael Jordan and all that. So I walk in the first day and I'm like, I don't know what to expect. And I walk into an office. It's not even our office. It's more Nagy's office than it is Gary Horton's office, because Nagy's working with Mike George, who was an agent, had a lot of players, a lot of like Florida guys, all that. So Gary Horton, who's 330, 350. No, I mean, he's a big dude.
He's a big man.
He's a
big guy. Yeah.
Big guy. He's in the corner at Mike George's desk. Nagy, and this is like the size of one executive's office, not like a head coach in college football, but like just an executive office space. Nagy's sitting in the other corner, and I walk in, and it's like, all right, I walk in, and I pull up a table. Now I'm like staring at Gary. My computer and chair I pull up are staring at Gary. We're back to back, and we're off and running. It was the most dysfunctional office. I mean, he was cutting his toenails in the middle of the office. Oh. But it was the most dysfunctional company in the history of companies. We're all squatting inside this agent's office who lived down in Florida. But it turns out, like, Dean Dalton worked with us. He wound up working for the Vikings as a running backs coach. Nagy went on to be, Patriots, winning Super Bowl rings, Chiefs, Seahawks, and now the executive director with the Senior Bowl. And that's my brief introduction. I'm sure we could do stories for days, man. But we do appreciate your time and plan on having you as many times as you'll come on with us. But thanks for joining us, bud.
Yeah, man. You forgot Mike Levine too, the president of CAA Sports. Vino's big time. Vino's made it bigger than anybody. So that was where we could do like an intro every time I come on. We could do like one Gary story per episode or something. I don't know. I don't know what rated your program is, man. But no, it's cool. Think about that. We were both like young idiots in our 20s, and we were in this corner office in Midtown Manhattan, overlooking Central Park and Midtown. I mean, that seems like a lifetime ago, dude. Like, that doesn't even seem like the same person lived that life as us right now. But yeah, so it's been awesome, man. It's awesome to see what you've done. And it's cool to have you back in the space. Like I said, like you've contributed so much to the draft space over the years. And again, like when we were young, dude, like I wanted to be with a team and you wanted to do what you did. So that was kind of cool. Like we split off and went our own paths, but we both went the ways we wanted to go. But no, I mean, whether people want to give you credit or not, or admit it or not, like you're a big reason why a lot of people love the draft now, man. Like you've seen like a whole generation of like young people into like their 30s and 40s now, man. So it's cool to have you back.
I appreciate it, brother. And it's amazing how life works, like full circle, working in that office, just couple idiots. And now like probably closer friends than ever before. So I've appreciated our friendship and relationship over the years. Let's get down to business, bud. Like we're gearing up. January, last week in January, the Senior Bowl is coming up. Feels like we're getting closer and closer as we go. February 1st is the Reese Senior Bowl this year. Mensch will be down there if we can get him on that plane. I'll be down there. I'm sure I'll be bugging you like a week before because my hotel room won't be right.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah. We got a long-standing tradition.
Yeah. You and Albert Breer every year. You and Albert Breer every year is the late hotel guys.
Bert Breer keeps following me around. Like I used to live in the south end of Boston. He was a block away. I didn't know. Found out like a year and a half later. Now I'm down in Cohasset, the South Shore. He's like 2 towns down in Duxbury. Just found out like a week ago. Anyway, so yeah, Bert, I can see that a couple mass holes messing everything up. Let's get to it. Obviously, I'd like to be unlike a lot of other shows, but we do want to talk quarterbacks for a minute. I texted you the other night about Garrett Nussmeier. We both love him. Like love the dude, love the it factor, the competitiveness. As a player, like the anticipation, changing arm angles, he has the mentality, like the gunslinging. But it's funny going on X and Twitter, whatever you call it, and everyone's racing the QB. He's my QB1. He's this, but like the more tape I watch, I just wonder, would it be best for him to come back another year, or is he going to be ready to go after this year? I'm not asking you to answer that question necessarily, but I do know that you're closer to this than anybody out there. And I'm just curious, like what you're hearing, what you think, what do you think with Nussmeier in this year's quarterback class?
Yeah, I think, excuse me, he's an interesting one. I think if he does come out, I do think he's going to be a first-round pick. I do think he's got the highest upside of anyone in this draft. But you're talking about a really small sample size. I mean, I went to SEC Media Days over the summer, and before I went down the first day, knowing I was going to be asked about Nussmeier, I rolled through that Wisconsin Bowl game, and I was like, wow, is there a lot to like? I mean, I saw him. I went to a practice last year in August to see Jaden Daniels throw. In Nussmeier, I was like, wow, like I knew his name, right? Like we both know his dad. We both been to schools with his dad. Doug Nussmeier, he's, for people that don't know, he's the quarterbacks coach of the Philadelphia Eagles now. Has spent a lot of time across college football, Michigan, Alabama, Florida, number of different places. And I didn't know how good. I didn't know as talented his son was. So we're watching practice. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, this kid can absolutely rip it. And then you had the one game to go off. So rolling into this year, like that one game, there was so much good stuff. I was excited to see him. So I do think and the other night, like it's just hilarious, sitting on Twitter, during a game and seeing it's just, I don't know, it's kind of entertaining. We all do it.
Very,
but
and mildly frustrating to say the least.
I think the biggest thing and he threw those picks the other night. Again, to the gunslinger thing, first of all, if we can address that, I like it. I don't know if it's because
I said it as a positive.
Maybe it's my first job in the league was around Brett Favre. Yep. I feel like you can rein that in. It's hard to coach balls into a player. Like, and you got to have some balls to play at the next level. Those windows are going to be smaller. You have to trust your arm to a degree. You got to let it rip. And he's got that. So does he need to be smarter sometimes with the football? There's no doubt. I think a couple of those interceptions the other night were just inexperience. I don't think he saw the coverage right.
He got tricked. And Elko threw some great stuff at him.
Give Mike Elko a ton of credit. I mean, he's one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. He's got a couple good corners, and he threw some stuff at him. So that being said, I do think Garrett's going to make a smart decision because obviously he's coming from a football family. He's got his dad. It's not like he's in a hardship situation where he's trying to rush to the NFL to like make ends meet and provide for his family. So that being said, where the NFL is at right now, I mean, look at where we're at coming out of yesterday. With Richardson with the Colts. I mean, You're getting thrown to the fire. If you get drafted early, ready or not, here it comes. I mean, I know
Drake May's never going to start as a rookie, right?
Right. Of course not. Here we are, week 5 or whatever it was. Drake May's in there. So that's going to happen. So if you're not getting developmental reps in the NFL, why not go back for another year and get him in the SEC? Play 13, 14, 15 more games, see the game more, let it slow down, and then come out next year. I could see it happening either way. I don't think he can make a bad decision because I think if he comes out this year, he will be a first-round pick because there's just way too much talent there and makeup and it factor. Like you said, I mean, coach's kid. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff wrapped up in that background. And if he stays, you can't second-guess that either. He's going to go back and he's going to be on a good team and he's going to see a lot more and be more NFL ready because that is a hard freaking league. And we're seeing it with Anthony Richardson right now. We saw it with Zach Wilson. We've seen it with a lot of guys. We're seeing it with Bryce Young. So yeah, that will be interesting. That will be over the next 6 weeks. That's going to be one of the more interesting things to follow when it comes to the draft space is what is Garrett Nussmeier doing? Yeah.
And I think when people NFL scouts get to know these guys in and out, the human being, the character, them as the person. And I think you and I are kind of in similar unique positions where I'm rooting for 450 guys every year. Truly. Right. I know you for all the guys that can play in the Super Bowl and everyone, but you get to know all these guys and you want what's best for them at the next level. When are you prepared to take that job and actually contribute to an organization? And so we'll see what that decision is. So that'll be fascinating to watch. I know anytime it's an Alabama player, especially an Alabama quarterback, being in Mobile, Alabama, it's a different level of, I don't want to say pressure on you guys, but certainly there's an emphasis, right? Jalen Milroe, where are you on Jalen, what you've seen this year? I mean, we've seen probably the same things, but where are you on Jalen? What can you tell us?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I mean, if there's a good Crimson Tide player in the game, that's big for us down here, right? This is a huge Alabama market. So, when I interviewed for the job, I told them we got to get away from kind of the charity invites to the Auburn and Alabama guys. If we want Najee Harris to come to the Senior Bowl, we got to invite the other really good players. We can't take the backup tight end because he was from Mobile. We can't do that. So with Milroe, I'll say this: we all saw him progress over the course of last year. I was at the Texas game last year where he had some rough patches, gets benched, and we all know he came out of that South Florida game and became the starter again and kind of rode it off to a really good year. I saw him throw at the Manning camp this summer. It wasn't great. Wasn't his best day. No, it was only a one-day exposure. So I have learned over the last 7 years not to put too much stock into what I see down in Thibodaux, Louisiana every time. To me, it's more about connecting with the players, connecting with those QBs and getting to know them a little bit and talking about Senior Bowl a little bit. But I think with Milroe early, what I liked was some of the more design run. And really, Jalen having more of an aggressive mindset and being decisive with the run. I think when you watch him, there's a difference when he takes off and he's decisive with it. I mean, holy cow, he's different. He's got rare speed. Todd, I was on the field a couple years ago before A&M, and like you do, I mean, you talk to a lot of scouts, and a bunch of guys were in the building the day before, and this was the year Jahmyr Gibbs was coming out. And I was asking guys about Jahmyr Gibbs, and they're like, "Yeah, he can roll. He's the second fastest guy in the program." And that begged the question, the follow up, well, who's the fastest then? And they're like, it's the backup quarterback, Jalen Milroe. So Gibbs ran what? Low 4.3s.
Gibbs was hitting I remember he was hitting 20, 22, 20, almost 23 on the miles per hour.
Yeah. So, the words rare and freaky, get thrown around way too much, but that's freaky speed for a quarterback. We're talking Michael Vick speed. If he goes decisively, there's sometimes where he doesn't look as sure and he's kind of tentative, and it doesn't look as fast, but I thought he was running more decisively early. And more importantly, I felt like the anticipation was better, especially the Wisconsin game stands out. There were some throws in that game that I didn't see him making the year before. I thought, as a first-year starter, and this is no knock on Jalen, this is a lot of first-year starters. I thought he was a clear picture guy. He really needed to see. He really needed to see receivers break open before he ripped the football. I thought this year, I mean, he was throwing guys out of breaks. I mean, I posted one on Twitter after that Wisconsin game. He was our Senior Bowl player of the week. And, man, the guy was running a corner route, kind of a deep flag route, and he wasn't even out of his break yet, and Milroe launched that ball. So he was making progress. And now I think we all, look at the Vandy game and the Georgia game. I mean, there's been some good and there's been some, head scratching stuff. So I still think with the tools, he's probably he's probably ahead of where Jalen Hurts was coming out. Because I think if we bring Jalen Milroe to the Senior Bowl, I'm not going to get asked by the media if we're going to play him at running back during the week, which is what the media people asked me at the press conference when Jalen Hurts played. I mean, I think he's beyond that. And I think obviously Jalen has played beyond where we thought Jalen was going to play. Now, I don't know if anyone saw a Super Bowl quarterback or an MVP conversation quarterback when he was down here in Mobile. I think the Eagles really, credit Howie Roseman. I heard through the process, that was Howie's guy. Howie loved Jalen Hurts, and credit him for really going up in the second round and taking him. If he doesn't take him there, Jalen Hurts might have been a 4th or 5th round draft pick. So I'm getting long winded on you, man. But there's just a lot. It's not going to be a clean eval. At least to this point, it hasn't been.
Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about the offensive tackle group? The two guys from LSU, I really like. I think they're talented, but I don't think they've played quite as well as I had hoped coming into the season. I think the same thing is true from Banks at Texas. Is there maybe a couple tackles that you see maybe emerging that could move up in the group? And what do you feel about the top of the class right now?
Yeah, it's a thinner group. We're coming off a really strong year a year ago.
Right.
I don't know if anyone in this top group this year would have been in that upper echelon last year.
There's no Joe Alt, right?
No, I think we had 5 first-round offensive linemen in the Senior Bowl last year. I don't know if any of these guys stack up to that group of players. To me, Tyler Guyton was more athletic than anyone in this class, and he went in the 20s to Dallas.
Yeah.
And he's starting as a left tackle. I thought Tyler was a better athlete than any of the guys in this class. So, but there's some good ones. You mentioned Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Those guys they're very different players. I think that some teams see Emory Jones more of a guard. Mm-hmm. So if we get him here in Mobile, I think teams are going to want to see that. I think everyone sees Will Campbell as a left tackle. Trying to think of guys that have emerged. The one guy I really like, I'm going to butcher his name. I'll just call him Big Jonah down there at Arizona.
Yeah.
He's a big, bouncy, thick, bouncy man. And again, his ultimate home might be at guard as well. That's kind of where I see him. But he's a super talented guy. And in terms of guys emerging, I would say there's a couple small school guys. Let's address the small school guys. That's always been a huge, really cool part of the Senior Bowl. And quite frankly, we're losing that a little bit with the transfer portal. I hate it. I would say it was about 3 years ago. You looked out at the offensive line group on both teams, and it was Fordham, and it was Southern, it was North Dakota State, it was Tennessee, Chattanooga. We almost had more sub FBS
and guys that are playing now.
Yeah. All those guys are playing, good players. So it kind of stinks that we're losing that, but I'll bring up a couple guys. I think a riser right now, a guy that probably started the season in the 4th, 5th round range for most people is Gray Zabel at North Dakota State. There's been a lineage, right? We had Dylan Radens a few years ago as a 2nd round pick to the Tennessee Titans. And then we had Cody Mauch 2 years ago, who was a top 50 pick to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Gray's the next guy in line. And there's a lot of day 2 buzz already. I thought it might take a good Senior Bowl week to get him up there. And I don't know if that's because it's the class itself, the O-line class is starting to settle. And teams are like, man, if we need one, we better go. We're starting to push guys up a little bit. But he's a good player. And then there's a tackle at William and Mary who's
Grant.
who's a good player as well. Has made a nice jump. I saw him at Duke Manyweather's camp this summer, and he's a really good athlete. A 7-level athlete on an NFL scale. He's fun to watch. But I told him point blank, I'm like, man, you have to be more physically dominant at that level. Teams are going to want to see you be more of an ass kicker. And to put on the tape this year, it was cool. And I'm sure it wasn't just coming from me. I'm sure he heard that from a lot of people. But sometimes you talk to players about stuff like that, and you get to their senior year, and it kind of looks the same. I'll give him a lot of credit. He's kicking ass this year.
You're not going to get any. Go ahead.
Really quickly of the guys that there's always someone that comes out of the Senior Bowl whose stock skyrockets. Do you and your staff go into the week and say, this might be the guy this year? Do you have a feeling when the guys show up that this might be the guy that really jumps up on boards this year? Or is it always a surprise? Sometimes a surprise?
That's a great question, Steve. I think the cool part of it, so like right now we're in the middle of our NFL call process. Mm-hmm. We had our scouting meetings last week. Our guys have all said their piece. We got the board set the way we saw the board. And now, like I just said, we got off with Pittsburgh. We did one with the Bengals yesterday. We've got one with the Jets when we get off this. And then we've got like 10 more set up through the weekend till Monday. We got the Texans on Monday morning, but we just compare notes. So, when people ask me, did this guy help himself in the process or not? Like, I'm not just throwing darts or making stuff up. Like,
right.
We know where teams have these players. So, like a year ago at this time, Braden Fisk, the defensive tackle from Florida State, nobody had him on day 2. I mean, it was mostly 5s, some 4s. He was a super disruptive guy. He kind of created havoc for other people, but like the numbers on paper weren't there, in terms of like TFLs and sacks. He just kind of blew stuff up for everybody else, right? And then he comes down here and has the week he has. I mean, he almost unblockable. He goes to the combine. He looks like a damn Mike linebacker going through the D-line drills.
Yeah.
And he goes up to, the Rams traded up to the 39th pick in the draft. So for a power 4 player to jump 2 or 3 rounds in the process is a massive jump. Like Terry McLaurin did it a few years ago. He came down here. Everybody had Terry in the 5th or 6th round. We really brought him here. I loved his punt tape when he was a gunner on punt team. I saw the speed. He was the number 2 receiver at Ohio State behind Paris Campbell. Liked him as a receiver, but didn't realize how good he was till he got here, and then nobody could cover him. He was the fastest stuff on all our GPS stuff. He goes to the combine.
And he ran a 4.3, 4.31
or 4 threes. And so for him to go from the 5th or 6th to the 3rd, that was a massive jump. I mean, now in hindsight, Terry should have been probably a mid 1.
Right.
Yeah.
The guy's a monster. So yeah, I think if guys have a good process, they can jump around, and depending on where that is in the draft, regardless of where that is in the draft, that's a lot of money. But when you start jumping 2 and 3 rounds, I mean, holy cow. But yes, to answer your question, yeah, there's guys that we come down here and I know where the league's kind of at with them. Like, I think he's a little better than that. So hopefully these guys show out. So yeah, there's a handful of guys every year.
That's my internet glitched for a minute, right? And leave it up to Muench to fucking hijack this thing and take it to offensive tackles. Right? Like we're in the middle of a quarterback conversation, and now I'm talking about NDSU and William and Mary offensive tackles. Real quickly, let's circle back on the quarterbacks real quick.
Yep.
I don't know, I'm not asking you to divulge anything here, but we talked about Milroe. We talked about Nussmeier. Who are some of the other guys when we make the trip down to Mobile that we might wind up seeing that you guys have your eyes on a quarterback?
Yeah, I don't think there's any surprises in this draft, Todd. I think just based off the 2 calls we've had already, like everyone sees the same grouping. It's just the order of that grouping. And for us, I mean, selfishly, again, I think of everything through the Senior Bowl chair. It's a good thing. There's not, I think a year ago at this time, everyone knew Caleb Williams was going to be the top pick. I think this was about the time of year where Jaden Daniels went to Tuscaloosa and went off. And then 2 weeks later has the historic game against Florida, goes on to win the Heisman. And we kind of lost him at that point. But none of those guys have done that yet. Nobody's really separated themselves. Everyone's had their we talked about Milroe having some rough patches. I mean, certainly Carson Beck had a rough patch in the first half against Alabama. Quinn Ewers had a rough patch against Georgia. So it's going to be Beck. It's going to be Ewers. It's going to be Shedeur Sanders. Really the biggest riser of the group is Cam Ward. At Miami. Right. I see a lot of stuff online right now about Cam being a slam dunk first round pick. I would just warn, be careful, because, again, we didn't invite Cam Ward to the Senior Bowl last year, and a lot of that had to do with the feedback from teams was 5th and 6th round. So, again, I think Cam's had a great year. It's been awesome seeing him in more of a pro-style offense. my biggest thing with Cam Ward in the past was I've always called it like the Houdini thing, and maybe I'm really dating myself with a Harry Houdini reference. I don't know if like young people even know who the hell that is anymore. But he could run around and make magic happen. And what he did, most of what he did was off script, and that was really cool stuff. And it was fun to watch, and you saw the arm talent. But what I think NFL evaluators wanted to see is more of a pro style system, more play within the scheme, play more on time, play more on schedule. And does he have the ad lib plays this year? Certainly. But I think in Shannon Dawson's offense down there at Miami, he's done a really good job playing in the structure. So he has made a big jump. But again, a 4 or 5 round jump to get into the first round, that's a massive, massive jump for a player. So again, I think we love to do this. We love to just take players and run them up the board and say they're going to be first rounders. And I'm really sensitive to that because, again, going back to when I worked for a team, like to hear the disappointment in kids' voices when like you would call them on the phone to recruit them as free agents, right? And they're getting a call from an NFL team to be an NFL player, and to hear the disappointment and just it should be a joyous time, and it's not. And I'm like, well, Bud, what's going on? You're going to be a Seattle Seahawk. And he was like, well, man, everyone was telling me I was going in the 3rd round. And so my point is, there's so much false information out there, man. Like, again, I'm probably overly sensitive to it. I just hate where some of the narratives on these guys go. So back to Cam Ward, like he's having a great year. Love him. Hopefully we can, we'll get him here to Mobile and he can show out. But, they're just running these guys up the board. But that's the group, man. Dylan Gabriel's going to be there. Will Howard's going to be in that mix. Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. Trying to think, Curtis Rourke's name has come up. Some teams have draftable love for Curtis Rourke at Indiana. Mark, if you're throwing a small school name in there, Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State. Probably not having the year he had last year without the supporting cast, but he's kind of a smaller school name to throw in there that a lot of teams see as draftable. But the teams aren't all over the board on this class in terms of the who they're talking about or who they're projecting high. It's just the order of where they're going to go.
Interesting. It's a lot of good information there, Muench, huh? So couple more things, and we'll let you roll. I know you're a busy man. I don't know what they're paying you. I don't know what they're paying you down there to organize this thing, but like if it ain't 7 figures, they're not paying you enough, and I'll probably get you in trouble for this. But Muench, you understand like the knowledge you hear, right, of all the players that he's got. Then he's helping you truly, like legitimately coordinating with NFL teams, right? The service that's being done for NFL teams, then the community, then the organization of it. And to see, like, we know Jim, so we're always biased, but like to see how scout friendly and evaluation friendly everything has become. Right. And like, I don't know. It's a different level than it's ever been. And like Phil Savage is a wonderful man and did great things too. Like, and they've always had good people working at the Senior Bowl, but like, it is like skyrocketing in terms of what Jim has done for the Senior Bowl.
I love the way you promote the game. I love watching the videos of you going on campus and the guy getting the box and he opens it up and he's got the Senior Bowl hat. Everyone thinks that Jim's just hanging out in Mobile, never, is just watching tape, but he's going to schools, he's seeing kids.
But it's important to Jim that he can be out there.
Right. Has there been, has that ever been one of those experiences that you remember more than others, maybe when you've gone to campus? Does the kid know it's coming? Do you tell him, I'm going to be on campus to give you your Senior Bowl invite, or do you surprise him? How does it all work?
We try to have the element of surprise. It usually works.
Right.
Todd, I appreciate you saying that, man. No, this has been a really fun job, and we've got a great staff here. Staff has grown since I've been here, and again, the goal when I got here was to kind of pull back the curtain, and and I've said this a lot. This isn't anything new. Like when I got here, we didn't even have tape in the office. So like, how do we? I call the league office, and they're like, "Well, Jim, we don't give tape to the All-Star games." I'm like, well, how the hell do you expect me to do my job? Right. If you're not, so, it starts there. It starts there. It starts with building a real football operation. We've got 11 former NFL scouts on our staff. Those guys do an awesome job. But it's been fun. It's been kind of fun putting a stamp on things. Going out to the schools is unbelievable. I mean, that's very selfish of me almost to do that because I take so much joy seeing these players, especially most of those visits are small school players.
Right.
So, I really go back to the first one with Kyle Duggar, the Patriot safety. That was my second year here. We didn't do that the first year. He's in Hickory, North Carolina, this Division II school in the middle of nowhere, beautiful campus, unbelievable people. We called ahead and we had it ready. And the coach, they went through stretch before practice, and then he called the group up and, pulled out the Senior Bowl hat. And I'm in the background, like I'm way in the weeds, standing behind the bleachers. And just to see like the teammates mob them and everything, it's a little bit like when the walk-on guys get the scholarship.
I love that stuff.
There's a little bit of that to it. But yeah, man, it's fun. These kids, especially these small school kids, when they leave high school to go play at D2, FCS level, they're not dreaming of the NFL. I guess one other story I'll tell you, kind of behind the scenes story. I went up to North Dakota State a couple years ago for Cody Mauck, right? Cody was one of my favorite dudes. He's got the long red hair. He doesn't have his front teeth. He was kind of like unbelievable character. Dude looked like a Viking. And so we do the on-field thing after practice with Coach Entz, and the players are all there. And then, Cody comes over, we start talking, and I'm like, man, where are you from? And he was like, tells me his old hometown. He's like, I'm like, well, where is that? And he's like, I'm 45 minutes from here. He's like, got a family farm down there. So in the summertime, I can work on the farm and come back up here and get workouts in and everything. And I was like, oh, wow, you're from a farming family? That's awesome. And he goes, yeah, the dream someday is just to, play in the league long enough to make enough money to come back here and buy a farm. And I just shook my head, like knowing how talented this guy is.
Yeah.
Like he didn't know how good he was. I'm like, Cody, you are going to play as long as you want to play in the NFL. Like you're going to leave on your own terms and you're going to make so much money. You're going to be able to buy half the state of North Dakota if you want to and farm on it. So those
awesome.
are just the cool stories. Like he had no idea how good he was.
That's awesome.
I think he knew when he left Mobile after he kicked everyone's ass all week. But those visits on campus are really fun. We're getting ready to do a couple here next week.
Awesome.
Last one. We'll get out of here with this. Medj, so we were texting and talking all year long, but with ESPN, when we were covering the game, we would have these calls with Nagy, and Nagy would go through the whole roster. And I would never do that to Jim and drive him freaking crazy. But like he took the time and he went through, and the stories, like one guy after the other. And like, that was always my biggest takeaway. Like the fact that you get to know these individuals, what their struggles have been, what they've had to fight through, how they've gotten to where they are. One of just, 100 or so guys that can come down and play this Senior Bowl and get the opportunity to showcase what they can do. And so I just wanted to leave and give you the floor. If there's one or two guys that like the rest of college football, just to kind of keep an eye on, some guys that we could root for, guys as we get ready for that final week and come down to Mobile, like the entire NFL lands in Mobile, and we're getting ready for that week for the February 1st Reese Senior Bowl. Is there one or two guys with the stories that you just are really excited to tell and for people to realize what they've done to get here?
Yeah, there's some of the human interest stuff, and Todd, that brings up a great point. Like one of the greatest things about being an NFL scout to me was showing up at the schools every day and just hearing the stories of these players and hearing where they came from and the path they had to take to get there, and how hard it is for a lot of these players. Frankly, some of these guys just to get to college have overcome so much. So that's the stuff I used to love. And every day was a new day, right? Like you're showing up at a different school every day, hearing different stories, connecting with different people. So that's cool stuff. And we'll dig into some of the more of that stuff once we get these guys signed up. I'll give you a couple like football stories that are cool that people can kind of follow the rest of the year. For those that watch Big Ten football, I know, Todd, you grew up a Michigan fan. I went to school there. Khalil Mullings, the running back. It's a cool football story. The guy played 22 games at linebacker, right? He's in a crowded backfield with Blake Corum, so in Donovan Edwards. And he was the fullback last year, 235 pounds. I go in there in August. Coach Moore was good enough to have me up there in August, and he dropped weight. He got down to 230 to play running back. And here he is, like his backfield mate was on the cover of EA Sports College Football, Donovan Edwards, and he's a really good player too. And he's had some big games and big moments for Michigan. But Khalil Mullings is a guy that's worked his way up. Like, he could be sniffing the third round of the draft. Is a guy that was playing linebacker.
Isn't that wild?
I mean, he's run his butt off all year. I mean, you can't. To me, the thing is, he's 230 pounds and he cuts like a guy who's 205 pounds. Like, you don't see big backs with his cutting ability. So that's a cool one. I mean, just to keep working and grinding at it, you know?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's your craft out. And then the other one's Derek Harmon, a defensive tackle at Oregon.
Yeah, we just talked about him earlier.
Talked about him a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you probably know this. I mean, maybe they've told the story. I just know that, you know, a lot of what I do, I mean, I'm on the phone constantly with agents. And there was an agent that I think he's going to be working with, who's was at least honest with him, like gave him good feedback. He told him, he's like, Derek, you got to clean up your body. You know, you're sloppy. You need to lose a lot of weight. He doesn't even look like the same player as he did for Michigan State. I mean, some guys get better, right? Like, there's guys that make a nice jump. Like, this guy looks like a totally different player to me.
See, I didn't see. He's been a shock to me this year. I just didn't know a whole lot about him. So to hear that transformation,
about 320. Yeah, he was about 320 at Michigan State.
Yeah, so we grade glass half full in the summertime, like anticipating guys getting better. Theoretically, they should all get better, right? They're in the weight room, they're getting coaching, all that stuff. So we kind of glass half full it. We bump guys up.
We call it mercy grades.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. I like that, but you know, he was kind of a mercy 7th round grade, you know, to keep him on the draftable board. Guys, he's probably going to be a top 100 pick based off everyone I've talked to in the NFL. Like,
Isn't that awesome?
He's in that 3rd, 4th round range right now. That's, again,
and he busted his ass to get here.
He busted his ass and he listened. He listened to people, right? Like, a lot of these kids get feedback. A lot of these players get feedback. And they don't take it. They don't want to listen. They don't look at themselves in the mirror. They don't want to be honest with themselves. So tip of the cap to Derek Harmon for actually doing that. And that's not easy to do, especially at that age. I mean, so that's cool. That was a cool story. The Ducks are rolling. They're going into Ann Arbor this weekend. I'm a little nervous what's going to happen in Ann Arbor this weekend. But Derek Harmon's playing his tail off.
That's awesome. And you know, when the coaches get involved, to hear that story and to know how coachable he is, like, that's even another, you know, assist in his grade. So,
yep,
man, I love you, dude. Love having you on the show. Can't wait to get down to Mobile. Mensch, we're going to get you down. Nope, I don't care if we could get you on a train. We're going to get you down there. I'm joking with you. But what's our restaurant there? We went
Noble South.
Noges.
What's that?
Noges.
Okay, Noble South.
Noble South's your
too.
Spot now? I thought Noges was your spot.
I like both.
Now we got to go to Noges. We got to go to both.
Maybe we haven't been to Noges. I don't know.
I thought you've been there. I don't know. You know, things get fuzzy in Mobile. Things tend to get fuzzy during Senior Bowl week too. So.
They do.
I tell people all the time, though, the food down there's great.
The food's fantastic.
There's a bunch of places.
The food's fantastic. Yeah,
it's one thing you can eat well in Mobile, Alabama. We're
gonna have to do a show. We're gonna have to do a show from that week, maybe featuring like the 3 or 4 restaurants, just to give some love to Mobile. Like, Mobile has treated us well for the last 25 years, so we're gonna have to take care of that. I appreciate you, brother. We're gonna bring you on as much as humanly possible over the next 177 days. I looked that up. 177 days to the draft. So we'll be talking a lot. Tell Molly to get ready. I'll be shooting her a text for my hotel problems. But no, I appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, dude. Love you too. Happy for you. See you, Steve.
See you.
Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.